Robert, so good to see everyone.
Can I ask something?
Yes.
The lady who just said about OWN, is that on Facebook? You can get that without cable? Or is that right?
That's my understanding, that you can go to the OWN YouTube channel or Facebook page and access it. That's what an advertisement I saw said.
Okay, thank you.
And is the YouTube channel OWN?
I think so.
Okay.
If you go to the link that I posted, there's an article there and it tells you how to do it on Facebook, YouTube, etc.
OWN is the Oprah Winfrey Network.
Yep.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Tuesdays with Tillis. We are a community of nonviolent resistance, and we gather strength from coming together, and we gather wisdom, and we gather knowledge. And I want to invite everyone to just take a deep breath. And for this next hour, let us see if we can just relax a little bit and open our hearts to our own brokenheartedness, connecting us to all the people in the world who are brokenhearted. And I'm so honored always to introduce the Raging Grannies, these little old ladies who've been fighting for justice their whole lives and look so harmless, don't they? But speak with such passion about justice. And so I'm gonna mute everyone so that the Raging Grannies can individually unmute themselves as they sing. Always right to the point of the week.
Good morning, everyone. This song was first written in 2014 to remember the life of Michael Brown, who was shot by a police officer in Ferguson, Missouri. Here it is, 2020, and sadly, we have had to add more and more names to the list every time we sing this song. This violence must be stopped.
We will remember Michael Brown, 18 years old, when they shot him down. Corey Jones and young Sean Bell and Sandra Bland, we remember well.
Randomly, Lamara started screen share.
Tammy Rice was just a boy. Eric Garner and George Floyd. Breonna Taylor, Maya Hall, and Kendra James, we remember all.
We grannies all cry out in pain to see it happen once again. Their mothers weep, their fathers mourn. This racist plague leaves all hearts torn.
We sing for those who had no voice, who lived oppressed, who had no choice, for all denied of justice then, and all who rise and fight again.
Mm. Mm.
Can't hear.
Mm. Mm. A little hard to speak after that. I want to invite us to kind of stay with that for a few minutes. Because it's these feelings of brokenheartedness and discomfort that are connecting us to people who've been so oppressed for so long, and their descendants and their, ancestors. So I don't want to be too quick to coming out of this, and deep gratitude to the grannies. For bringing us to that place with your song. And as you feel able, if you can just kind of stay with the feeling in your body, speak into the silence. Bessie, do you want to speak next, or do you want to speak later? When would you like to?
I think I should wait till later.
That's fine. That is so fine. That is so fine. That is so fine. Yeah. I'm so grateful for you being here. So grateful to Cliff. So grateful to Jesse. So grateful to every person of color who joins us. And so grateful to everyone who's having the courage to really face our feelings and step in a deep way into what action we feel called to. And I'm really grateful that we formed ourselves as a community, 176 weeks ago. And so we're just continuing in growing in awareness. We've been talking about white supremacy all this time, systemic racism, all this time. And I know all of us are being invited into even a deeper consciousness, ever deepening consciousness. And part of what we do here is discern our action in the face of what we see happening around us and what we feel within us. And some of us have a really hard time not being out marching. Many of us just know it's not for us to be doing that right now. Many of us are doing that right now. And some of us really long to be out there. This is something we've wanted to see hundreds of thousands of people on the streets. But right now, a lot of us just can't do that for a whole lot of reasons. I somehow feel that those of us that have been organizing have been contributing to this even if we haven't been on the streets. And I just want to keep remembering that the organizing is an important part of this work.
I can try now, Karen, I think.
Thank you so much.
When Karen asked me to lead a discussion about what this time means for me, and for our country, she also wrote, "It is time for white leadership for sure to step back." I think Karen's comment was actually regarding TWT and its leadership. And perhaps Karen only wants to give non-whites of TWT a teachable moment or an opportunity to vent. I beg to differ with Karen, but her statement made me think about what Black America might say to white America, who asks, "What can I do?" Racism in America is a problem that only white America can fix. Everyone is saying the protesters are tired of the status quo of racism, and some are surprised that many are white and young. Well, Black America is glad that white America is tired because Black Americans are exhausted. Racism is the monster white America created nearly 401 years ago. And only white America can decapitate the monster of racism. It is time and long overdue. Black and white America need to lean on each other, but it is white America who must do the right thing. To Bill Barr and his ilk, who say racism is not systemic in law enforcement, I say read the US Constitution. Because racism was baked into the Constitution and has been ratified in every walk of American life, changes don't happen without white leadership's actions. So it is not time for white leadership to step back. Black America is well aware that past changes have come with the dedicated help of a few white Americans of good conscience and goodwill. Thank you, TWT. Now it is time for the white American majority to join the few and do the right things, beginning with not just listening to, but hearing what Black America has been telling white America for 400 years. White America did not believe because they did not see or did not want to see. Now the whole world has seen. What will white America do? Now, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, the rest of our lives? Will white America hear the cries of Black Americans for equal justice, not only under law, but in education, in healthcare, in jobs, promotions, and pay, in housing, fill in the blank? What will white America use in What will white America use its white privilege to do in the next 8 minutes, 46 seconds? The next 8 hours, 46 minutes. 8 days, 46 hours, which is really 9 days, 22 hours. And 8 weeks, 46 days, or 14 weeks. 8 months, 46 weeks, or 19 and a half months. 8 years, 46 months, or 9 years, 10 months. It is long past due for white America's majority to remove its knees from the necks of Black Americans. When that happens, as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said in 1963, and Thomas Jefferson authored in the Declaration of Independence. America can rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Black and white Americans must rise together, because white Americans also have to be on the ground to hold Black America down. Historically, it has been America's young folk, under the guidance of elders, who have initiated change in America. I am hopeful this unrest will be no different, and I pray this will be the beginning of the last time the matter of racism in America is the source of discord in these United States of America. That's why, that is why white leadership must stop. That is why white leadership must step up and finally do the right thing. And young folk must finish the fight Black America has been waging for 400 years. It does feel as though, as Karen said, massive shifts are happening for the better. But there is still much work to be done. This cannot be pass a few bills and all is well. This change could take generations to develop, but Black America cannot be asked to wait another 14 seconds to begin the healing. It will clear, if we can clear the virus in the White House and flip the Senate, I think we will have a good start at making America really great. It absolutely is not a time for white leadership to step back, because until real change happens, white America is still in control and has work to do. Support is appreciated, but actions speak to the powers that be. To that end, we, Black and white together, must move forward together, not one step back.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday.
I am speechless for a second time. And words cannot really express my gratitude to you, Bessie, for all that you have offered to us. I know I speak for everyone in thanking you with all of my heart, all of our hearts. And I think it's, yes, oh my God, what a gift. So it's fine for us to be just a little bit quiet, but it's also fine if you feel so moved to unmute yourself and speak. And thank you, Doyle. You have a beautiful voice.
I do want to say something. Karen? Can you hear me? This is Jesse. You're muted, Karen.
I'm so sorry. Go right ahead.
Not a problem. Not a problem. This is my wife, Classes. We like to let everyone know what we're doing for the cause. Classes, would you like to jump in?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Jess and I have quite a few white friends, individually and together. And, you know, this time really has, I think, made us really sort of compelled us to do something and not have it stop at our door, but to have it spread in our inner circle. So we put together an email just like 2 days ago to send to all of our white friends. And it's addressed that way, to our white friends. Because we are challenging them to really take a hard look at what's going on, their position or their feeling about what's going on, and what they can do about what's going on. We don't think this is a time for just words. We need some action. And this is really taking on, you know, what Beth said. I didn't know she was going to do this today, but this is really taking on what she said. We need white America to own some of this, because we can't make the changes that need to be changed. The changes that need to be made. So we're challenging them to at least let's have some dialogue about this. It's very difficult for people to talk about. I totally understand that. But being silent is not the answer either. One of our friends, one couple that we've been friends with for years, for like 40 years, they go to church, and they live in Chapel Hill, and their pastor sent a letter out to all their congregation, predominantly white congregation, in honor of Arbery, Floyd, and Brianna. I don't think that's her last name, but the girl. And at the end of the letter, so our friends thought it was a great letter, and she wanted to know what we thought about it. We thought it was a great letter, but again, it was words. But in it, Taylor, thank you. But at the end of that was an invitation to join the congregation, Pastor Ben is his name, to have some dialogue about all of this. Just put your feelings out there. And they sent us the link. We're not members of this church, of course. So they sent us the link and said, I don't know if you can get in or not, because I don't know if it's for members or anybody can get in. But we clicked on it and we were able to get into their Zoom conference, the Zoom, session about this. And it was quite interesting. The pastor talked about what his mission was to do this. And then he's put us in smaller groups, he said, because sometimes people feel better opening up in smaller groups. We ended up with a group of 3 white ladies in our group, and then the 2 of us. And one lady right away said, I've been quiet for a very long time. I can't be quiet anymore. I need to speak up. And she really hopes that she's echoing this sentiment of a lot of other white people. She was older, probably in her mid 60s to 70. So she's seen a lot of this. And I think people are just tired of it. They want to see change. They don't want this time to fizzle out like all the other times have. And I think people are really expecting more. When I say people, I mean a lot of white people. So they're willing to try and do what they can do about it. So I guess we would also challenge you, as we've challenged our inner circle. And I always say, our mantra is start with your inner circle. We can't expect the government to do all of this. We need to do work on ourselves. And start with our inner circle, start at the dinner table, have those dinner table conversations with our family and friends. And just let's have some dialogue. Let's try and start by talking about this and just kind of seeing where people are. And maybe that will sort of invoke some action, some really meaning, positive action to try and make a change this time around. That's what we have to say. And I thank you for what you guys have done. We really do appreciate it. It's so much needed. So thank you so much. And we as Black people have a part too. We thank the group. We said, if you reach out to us in an effort to make a change, we need to be accepting of your effort, of your offer, and of your effort. So we, Black America, need to be able to embrace what you're doing, with all the might that we have. So we thank all of you for all you're doing, all you've done, and all you will do. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Mm-hmm. I'm going to mute myself again.
Karen, I want to just speak about the need to reach out to young people, especially since racism is something that we know is taught and is not natural. I had a conversation with my granddaughter when she was maybe 7, when I first was arrested at a Moral Monday, was the second Moral Monday. And of course, she wanted to know why Grandma was arrested. And I said, well, there are some people in this country who don't think that people with dark skin should be allowed to vote. And she looked at me like I was speaking Klingon or something. I don't know, but she said, what do you mean? And I said, well, there are some people who think that if you have light skin, you're better than people who have dark skin. And again, she looked at me and she said, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. And she was right. It is the stupidest thing that we can teach our children, that somehow the color of our skin determines our worth in our communities. And she gave me a lot of hope to keep on the path that I had been on all my life, because my parents taught me that was a stupid thing. And I'm hoping that the changes will come from those of us who teach, those of us who have the opportunity, the wonderful opportunity to be with young people and to dialogue with those who didn't have that opportunity when they were younger and are coming to it now. The fact, Jesse, and that you speak about older people who are waking up to the stupidity of racism is very heartening. And then there needs to be more of that. So thank you so much for opening the door to some people who haven't had that opportunity before. I am so grateful for the work you're doing, because it will make a difference in all our lives. Thank you.
Something I have learned through this experience is how tremendous the power of police unions is in preventing officers from being prosecuted when they do wrong. The tactics that were used against Eric Garner and George Floyd were illegal. And fortunately, in the latter case, all 4 officers are being prosecuted. But in so many cases where there has been a death at the hands of police, there has been no accountability. And that has to change.
Another point that's been made about the police unions is that all of the union contracts across the country have in it that if you downsize the police force, last in, first out. So that any young people that might have been recruited and indoctrinated in values that you'd really want to obtain, they'd be the most vulnerable. And the old guard that's always been protected would carry on. And so the unions are a big problem.
I don't know if you guys watched the John Oliver I posted in the on the Facebook page, but his this week's episode was all about that, the unions and how all of this is a big mess, and that it's going to take a while to untangle, but it is doable.
So I put some good news in the chat, kind of. There's a professor who writes a daily letter, and they're really fabulous letters, Heather Cox Richardson. And she said that a number of things today pointing to a change in the media. The day started with Trump melting down over political polls that showed him trailing presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden by almost 15 points. A CNN poll begun the day after the tear gassing of peaceful protesters in Washington, D.C.'s Lafayette Square, so Trump could walk through it for a photo op, showed Trump's approval rating at an abysmal 38% and his disapproval rating at 57%. So this is a change.
No, it isn't. Let's be real clear. The prosecution and the indictments are one thing. The convictions is what we need to pray for. There's only one officer that has been convicted for wrongful misconduct. And guess what? He's a man of color.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. So the convictions is what we, and until the judiciary changes, and I'm getting off the soapbox.
Well, mine is a change in sort of public opinion. Like,
no, I get that, but it's the conviction rate is what we really need to go after.
And Elena, you had made the point about the origin of the police force. That bears restating.
What's the origin of the police? To protect property. What's the one thing that people, and to collect runaway slaves? And what's the one thing that people in this country have prevented time and time again? Affordable housing, property ownership of people of color. So when I saw the National Guard at Cameron Bougie Village in Raleigh, I lost my mind, because you can't get, I mean, you can get more racist. I'm a white woman, sorry. But it was just, they were protecting freaking property. I lost my mind. And I joined a bunch of young kids and screamed through the streets because the National Guard. And you know what one young man said to me? That's because I work for the governor and he told me how to be here. And I told him to put down his arm and join us.
I just want to call your attention to the chat box. Cliff has put at least 3 important things in the chat box. And Cliff, I don't know if you want to call your attention to what they are.
Hello, everyone. This is Cliff in Durham, and I have put in the chat box a few links if you are interested in finding out more information about some of the things that we've been talking about today. I think the last and most recent thing I put in was a link from an article that appeared in Vox that explains what it really means to defund the police. I think that in some respects, the verbiage, defund the police, kind of smacks one in the face in a way that may lead you to recoil for just a moment. And it really requires one to take a hard look at what it means. There are probably some people who endorse that idea in its most literal sense and its most complete sense, but there are gradations of defunding that I think need to be explored. So that is, I think, a worthwhile article. And trying to remember what else did I put in here. I do think there was a great article that appeared in the New York Times yesterday by Michelle Alexander, who I think it was called something like America, This Is Your Last Chance. And she kind of made the point that, we're at an inflection point here, not just for racial justice, but really for the entire democracy. And I think it's well worth a read. And let's see, trying to remember what else I put in here. Oh yeah, and as Karen said initially, there are a lot of us who I think in spirit would like to be out on the streets, but because of the pandemic and such, don't really feel like it's best for us to do that right now, because of our age and other health conditions and so on. But one of the good things about having some years on us, as virtually all of us do on this Zoom meeting, is that you probably have more money now than you've ever had in your life, right? And in light of that, there are a whole lot of places that can use your financial support. So you don't have to get out on the street. You can just open up your checkbook, or if you're into points and miles, you can use your credit card. And check out the article from New York Magazine that just talked about 115 different organizations that are about promoting racial justice. And so I direct your attention to these articles.
Thank you so much, Cliff. Thank you so much. Bessie?
Yes.
I'm sorry, did you want to say something, or you just?
Oh no, I was saying thank you to Cliff.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
But now that I have your attention, I will say that what Elena was saying about the only person who's ever been convicted, only policeman who's been prosecuted and convicted was a Black person, that just illustrates the injustice in America, because a white person can do the exact same thing that a Black person has done and suffer no consequences, none whatsoever most of the time. And if they are prosecuted, a lot of times they don't suffer the consequence. They get off anyway. So it comes down to fairness. If you can be nothing else, you can be fair, because that is so obvious. That's the first step in justice. It's just being fair. But America doesn't even try to do that.
And I will add something to that. This has more to do with just having a moral conscience. They say, first thing happens when you get a situation like this is the police officer's training. Well, I don't think you should learn how to be fair, as Bess just said, or to treat someone with dignity. You don't need to learn that in police training. You should already have that when you get to the force. If there's some way that to weed out the people, these officers who don't have that innate quality in them, then they don't need to be on the force in the first place. Just be fair, treat people with dignity. How would you want somebody to treat your father, your brother, your grandfather? Push them over and then say they tripped and fell. No, he didn't trip and fall, he was pushed.
Right, right.
You don't learn that at the academy. That's ingrained in your psyche. Talking about a Congress with no conscience. We have officers with no conscience. We have none. the empathetic bone in their body when it comes to Black people. Just not there. That's what we need to try and change. And don't accept if you hear people talking against any race, not just Black people, but just make it known that it's just not accepted. Kind of went the way of the cigarettes. It's not accepted in society anymore. You can't talk like that. So that's kind of what we need to. We can kind of keep our eyes on that. I think will for some direction. Yes. Mm-hmm.
I want to support Cliff's suggestion that white people could be doing a whole lot more to fund Black-led organizations. Two of my friends, Claudia and Tema, are working on developing a network of white people, reaching out to other white people and challenging us to examine where do we currently give our charitable giving? Who are we supporting and why are we supporting them? And begin to look for organizations which are focused more on racial justice and ending white supremacy and supporting the efforts of Black people and people of color to meet their own communities' needs, to develop funding for them to make choices about their neighborhoods and their local governments. So I've felt very challenged by that, and it's something I'm going to work on.
Thank you, Jan. This is Lib, and I've really appreciated the link to the Black Panther history and the organization and the 6 R's. I was like, whoa, this is, I lived through the 1960s. I didn't learn that at that time. So being with all of you and appreciating so much your heartfelt language. The language you're using is very educational and very, very much appreciated. And Bessie, I was a white teacher in an all Black elementary school in Wake County when they decided to integrate the schools. So it's been as recent as 1967 that Black children were handed such terrible textbooks that they were unraveling and expected to go home with their textbooks, and if something happened to them, then they were supposed to replace the book. I've never forgotten. I was like, how do I cannot hand out these spelling books. They won't even make it through the next week. That was 1967. So I'm much more aware of my white privilege and trying to decide how best to write my family, really. I'm thinking maybe to write everybody a letter, because I know there's some in my father's people that were KKK members. It's just, it's so challenging on so many levels. And when we know we need to change the Constitution and start over. Anyway, go ahead. Somebody else wants to say something.
Well, I wanted to say that the way Lib just mentioned that she didn't learn about or that we didn't, a lot of us white folks didn't know anything about the Panthers' 6 Ps is an example of the role the media plays. I mean, the media could have told everyone in America what the Black Panthers program was, but they participated in, I don't know, can we call it a whiteout of an incredibly important program that could have helped the entire country, every single citizen, in the sense of learning to live together and have moral. What was the word, Mrs. Waters? What was the word you used? More. I know I'm supposed to know this word, but that moral grounding, we would have all benefited from seeing what the Panthers were doing, and it's going on right now too. Just the erasure, and that I think part of seizing the narrative is by working directly towards the media.
Part of what the feeding program that Fight for 15 and Poor People's Campaign is doing, the Fed Up to Friday, is based on Black Panthers, what they did.
I just wanted to let you all know that Jaleel Montecrine, who was one of the Black Panthers who has been in prison for over 40 years, was taken to the hospital recently with COVID-19. And he had been cleared for a release. He's my age, actually, so he's one of the older prisoners, and he was not, even though he had been cleared, he was not released. And of course, he was incarcerated in a place where it was impossible to practice any kind of safe distancing, and was not given any kind of mask or anything else. So my thoughts are with him, and I will find and put in the chat, if I can, before this call ends, an address where you can send letters for his release.
And what is his name again?
Jaleel Montecrine.
Thank you.
I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you. Thank you.
There was mention of a list of 150 Black organizations we might support financially. I can't do 150. Bessie, could you suggest the best place to invest?
Oh, I think Cliff might be a better gauge of that than I, because I'm very new to politics in general, and North Carolina specifically. But I think Cliff's point was that if you look at the list that's in the New York Times, I think he said it was the New York Times, those have been vetted. I would wager to say, I don't know for a fact, but if it's in the New York Times, it's probably those people.
Let me just elaborate a little bit. Yeah, I did put a link in there from, it was actually from New York Magazine that had an article about 115 different organizations. And you can just comb that list and see what appeals to you. I know that in terms of my own behavior, I am particularly fond of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund.
Yeah.
Because so much of what we have to deal with in the end winds up in the courts. And maybe some of you saw 60 Minutes this past Sunday and saw that wonderful segment that was done on the NAACP Legal Defense Fund featuring Sherilyn Ifill. I put a link to that in the chat as well.
Good.
And I think if you take a look at that, you'll probably be inspired to contribute there. But again, there's so many places. And I think my sense is that a lot of, well-intentioned white folks feel like, they're kind of overwhelmed with the enormity of the problem that's been kind of cast on their shoulders at this point. I just say start wherever you are, wherever you are. Most everybody here is out of the workforce, but has been in the workforce at some point in the past and has developed some expertise in their life. And you can use that expertise to some benefit Also, like I said before, you've got some money that you can give to people, and there's some learning that you can do to prepare yourself. I think, and one other thing I would add is that, in weeks past, we have heard Karen try to, inspire white people to accept the responsibility for moving this issue forward. In the beginning portion of my career, I used to work at the university with students, helping them solve problems around personal or career or academic things. But also, a big part of my job was to go around the campus and do workshops on racism and diversity and that kind of thing. And I know that it's one thing for white folks to hear Black people tell them about race, but I think it's a whole nother thing when white people talk to white people about race. There's maybe a greater level of receptivity, perhaps less defensiveness. And it's similar, I guess, if you think about, let's say, sexism, that at some point, it's got to be more than just, women who have had some negative experience talking to men about that, but men, older men, mature men have to speak to young men about the appropriate way to relate to women. And it has, it's heard a little bit differently. And that's the same point I'm trying to make about how white people need to talk to white people, confront white people, inspire white people to move forward. And someone, I think in the very beginning, I think actually Bessie, I think every word that you said at the very beginning really resonated, and I endorse it, that this is really something that white people now have to take on. And that I also I'm going to finish in just a moment, just say that I really do also appreciate what Karen was saying at the very beginning about brokenheartedness, because again, those of us with some years on us have seen aspects of this movie before, right? And we really don't want to have our heart broken yet again. So it's time. And in life, it's important to know what time it is, and it is time to move.
I want to second Cliff's suggestion of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. It does wonderful things. And then to add the United Negro College Fund, which funds all of the HBCUs. And maybe some of you know that there are more HBCUs in North Carolina than any other state.
Go ahead.
We haven't even discussed the disparity of COVID-19 and the lives that are being taken in the African American community.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't say that in my piece. I thought about it, but I didn't write it down at the time that I thought about it, so it kind of left me for a minute. But that's why the young people are so important right now, because they can do what we can't. Not because they're not susceptible, they are. But it's unfortunate that this work still needs to be done, but it's gratifying to know that the young people feel like it's important enough to take that chance, to take the risk, because there are no guarantees in life. I mean, they could not do anything and we could go on and still, particularly because of COVID in this time, none of us may be here if we don't. The bottom line is, if we don't get the White House cleared out and the Senate cleared out, COVID is it's going to do what it's going to do. The only place that we actually have any kind of control is marching, and that's why, and we need the young people to do that. So I'm grateful for them to do that, especially particularly. It's almost like this is the perfect storm. I asked before, what did we do to get the position that's in the White House, the thing that's in the White House right now? What did we do to deserve that? But maybe that had to happen so this perfect storm could happen. We had him for 3 years, and then COVID came along and disrupted everything. And then George Floyd happened, and it was like a boiling point. It just blew.
I'd like to follow up on what you said, Bessie. I think that one of the things I've talked to my grandchildren about has been the racial attitudes that I was raised with in a small town in West Texas, where the Black people in the community lived on the other side of the railroad track, and every person's first name started with an N. And that's what I grew up with. And I must admit, at 77 years old, I am still struggling to leave that behind. I've had wonderful African American and other minority students and friends, but when I encounter a person of color whom I don't know, sometimes the old stereotypes, the old feelings click in, and I find that just at the core. And I think you're right, Bessie. I think we have to help the young people start out and just not poison them with these lifetime prejudices that are just so hard to give up.
Well, I appreciate you acknowledging that, Doyle, because so many people do carry what they've been taught all their lives. That's what they grew up with, and they still carry it, and they try to hide it, or they think they're hiding it, but people know and can see right through it. So I think the fact that you can acknowledge that is within you, then you'll be all right.
My beautiful, beautiful friends, we're going to bring this to a close, sing the closing song. I'm glad Bessie got the last word on this. So much grace from people today. And as we keep having these conversations with the people around us, I think we all have our marching orders to have these conversations. I just want to lift up that they're difficult, and we may feel awkward, and we may make mistakes, and we may say the wrong thing. And so I know that I've been guilty of this many times, both with talking about white people and blundering, and talking to Black people and blundering. And I just want to say, we're human. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to say the wrong thing. And let's just have courage to walk into discomfort and go the places that scare us. And I just want to say, if I have offended anyone, I humbly apologize if I've hurt anyone. And I also, and I think I speak for all the white people here, I so deeply apologize for this whole 400 years that my people have been visiting on people of color. And I know I speak for everyone. I want to do everything I can to lean into this shift that is happening, so that real change can occur. Starting with getting rid of Trump and Tillis, but it goes on from there. So, so please keep putting things in the chat. And if you don't get a reminder for this and didn't get one today, put your email for Jewel so she can send you the chat. And thank you, Jewel, for all of your work with this. It really helps glue us together. I really give you so much gratitude for that. And Randa's, we thought today was a good day for Mike's favorite song, Imagine. I don't know if it's with the ukulele or with the guitar, but
I love that.
But it's a good song for today, I think. And then Susan is going to close us. Thank you, everyone who spoke.
Can you hear me all right? Like
yes.
Speak or sing from this volume? Yeah, all right. That's all right then.
Oh.
Thank you, Rand and Karen and everyone, Grannies, Cliff, Bessie. I can't how much I appreciate being part of this group. And like Doyle, I grew up at a time with people around me, even though I was in the rural North Country of the Adirondacks, where it was like southern Canada. It was no, but the fact is that my family up there, I'm struggling with dealing with them, and I'm admitting I'm a racist. I grew up with this hard-baked stuff that I've worked on all my life, and I feel it deeply, and I want to be rid of it. But I can't even talk to them, So doing the best I can and trying to imagine a better world, I guess. Thank you all. Imagine there's no more silence. Systemic problems don't deny. When everyone is served and protected, no need for anyone to die. Imagine all the people standing up today. Imagine justice now for all of us. No need for blacks to fear police. Just asking whites to care about it. Why can't we all get along, live in peace? Imagine all the people living life in peace. It seems there are far more dreamers. So yes, we're not the only ones. I hope the rest will see the problem, and the world will be as one. Imagine no possession. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. Brother, sisterhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. And now it seems there's far more dreamers. So yes, we're not the only ones. We hope someday all will join us, and the world will live as one.
You know, there's so much to say, but there's a time for silence too. Just to let all that we have just shared together settle in, because this is the path to healing this pandemic that has been a blight on our nation from its inception. So let it settle in and do its healing work. What we are doing together here is what we are called to do in this moment. This is our last chance. I've been mindful throughout this time that as we gather here, George Floyd is being put to rest in Houston, being buried next to his mother. And as people remembered him, they remember when he was a high school senior, and all the seniors were talking about what they hoped for the future. And George Floyd said, I hope I can touch the world. You know, it's an abomination that he has touched the world in the way he did. But he has touched the world. He has touched us all. And so let him keep touching us and changing us. There's a mural to him in Idlib, Syria, rising up out of the rubble. And if it can rise up there, it can rise up anywhere. So imagine that happening. And shine on. Bless you all.
I can't figure out how to unmute you all. Unmute yourselves.
Okay.
Shine on. And forward together.
Not
one step back.
One more time. Forward together.
Not one step back.
Forward together. Not
one step back.
All right.
Thank you all so much.